Hi everybody, I'm Kim Santini. Welcome to my studio and welcome to the newest art journaling lesson that's part of my new series of journaling content that I'm calling Art SOJOURNaling. And these experiences are really an opportunity for us to journey inwards and spend some time with our true selves via our art journaling practice. So there's a number of lessons that I've already released in this series, and they deal with diving into some practices that we could use to soothe ourselves, to manifest certain things, find balance in our lives. So those lessons are all over on my YouTube channel, and I invite you to go over there and check them out if you are so interested. You can also find a link on my webpage, which is KimberlySantini.com. But today what I want to talk about, or what I want to share with you, is a meditation-centered page that is going to focus on empowerment and stepping into a world that can feel really overwhelming or impossible at times. So gather your materials, settle on in with your journal, and let's take a little sojourn together. Okay, for this lesson, which I'm calling the butterfly effect, you are going to need the following sorts of materials. I have a handful of gel pens here, and they are in different thicknesses as well as range from blue to black. You do not have to have a range of color, but I do find that the different thicknesses are interesting to me. I have a tablet here. I'm going to use this device later on to access some reference photos on the internet. You could also use a smartphone or any sort of laptop or computer that connects to the internet. I have some decorative tape here. Plain masking tape will work just as well. And if you don't have this decorative tape that's called washi tape on hand, but you want the effect, you can take the time to draw or paint on your masking tape and personalize it even more. I have a piece of transparent paper here. This is just a piece of deli paper. You could also use tissue, a napkin, any sort of vellum or paper. All you want is for it to be a little bit transparent. So get creative in what you choose to use. I have my journal here. This is Dina Wakley mixed media journal. It's made by a company named Ranger. And this journal happens to be about 10 by 15 inches. And what I love about it is that it's got different types of paper, all bound inside the same journal. So I'm going to be working in this one today. And I'm also using some water-soluble crayons or watercolor crayons, and you can see the manufacturer's name right here. I do want to mention that any of the products that I use, they are all products that I've purchased on my own. I do not ever get any sort of kickbacks or promotional benefits for talking about or using any of the products in these videos. I'm simply sharing them with you because I absolutely love them myself. So I'm going to use these watercolor crayons, and it's important that you choose some lighter valued crayons. You don't want anything that's really, really dark. And don't worry, if you don't have watercolor crayons, a pencil, even a mechanical pencil is going to help you out quite a bit. So we're going to start by choosing one or two of your lighter valued tools, and we're going to spend some time breathing and writing a meditation down. We are going to use an Isha Kriya meditational practice or mantra, and what we are going to be writing or thinking about are the words, I am not the body, I am not even the mind. And we're going to use this phrase in conjunction with our breath as well as with the practice of writing. And we're going to settle deeply into the actual words or the meanings of the words. This particular mantra helps increase our awareness of breath And breath is the basis of life and the link between ourselves and our bodies. Breath is such an important thing that happens subconsciously. Most of us aren't even aware of the process of filling our lungs or expelling the air. And increasing an awareness of this can be a really empowering thing. It can help you to feel more alive, more energetic, more centered in your decision making. And it can just really help you appreciate the moments of your day all the more deeply. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this mantra, I am not the body, I am not even the mind, and we're going to write it. And we're going to join this writing with our breathing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to inhale, and I'm going to write, I am not the body. And then as I exhale, I'm going to write, I am not even the mind. Now, this might take a little bit of practice to find the rhythm. And I also want to stress that as you write this, we're not looking for perfect penmanship here. We're not even necessarily looking for legibility. The significance is just that you settle in to the rhythm of the words and the rhythm of your breath. So I don't want you to get stressed out trying to match your writing to the length of your breath, but I do want you to be very aware of breathing in and breathing out and trying to marry those together with your phrases, okay? So here we go. Okay, I noticed a couple of things when I was writing. First of all, the scale that I began to write in was maybe a little bit too large to go with the pace of my breath, but I went with it anyway. And the other thing that I did was I took time to alternate in between and just change my color up. And you may have noticed when I got to the end of a line, if I was in the middle of a word that was okay, I just carried it over to the next line. So again, the purpose of this exercise was not so much to write anything legibly as it was to breathe and spend some time inside this meditation. I highly recommend doing this meditation without the writing aspect of it. And as a matter of fact, if you could take an opportunity to pause in your session after you do this particular step and sit in a quiet, comfortable position and do the exercise without the writing aspect, I think you'll really benefit from the increased awareness that happens with the breathing process and how you actually become so aware of the minute sensations that happen with inhalation and exhalation, as well as the even how it impacts your understanding or your noticing the way the blood flows to your lungs and away from your lungs during your breathing process. So, and if you wish to repeat this phrase somewhere more legibly on this page, you can, or you can take it and we'll write it more legibly at the very end of the exercise. So now, because I have done this in water-soluble crayons, what that means is that when I hit this with water, my lines may move or shift. And so this is totally optional. I want to sort of blend this or blur it a little bit more. I didn't press super hard when I wrote the words, so I may not get a really I may not get a really obvious or dramatic effect. But what I am going to do is I'm just going to spritz a little bit of water on this page. And I'm just using a little mister here. This just has water in it. I'm going to spritz the page with water. And I'm going to take my fingers and I'm going to move this water around and sort of move the pigment on the page a little bit. And as I do that, I'm going to repeat the mantra to myself. Okay, so I did a couple of breath cycles there while redistributing the pigment on the page. And what I want to do next is I'm going to set this aside and allow it to dry. And then that brings us to the next step, or the next piece in this lesson, which is spending some time with butterflies. Now, there is this phenomenon called the butterfly effect. And the premise behind the butterfly effect is where a minute, localized change in a very complex system can have large effects elsewhere. And the idea of a butterfly effect, for me, when I think about it, is that in the scope of a complex world where we have major issues, very complex things happening, where there is not a simple answer, but yet the immediacy of solving these problems feels so significant and relevant that often I end up feeling hopeless or helpless. And so for me, the importance of the butterfly effect is remembering that I can manifest change, even if it feels minute. The mere fact that I show up and I try to make a difference could ultimately impact the world or the solution to a particular problem in a very large way. So I want to think about the butterfly effect, particularly related to my breath and being heightened awareness of what my own body's capabilities are. And I'm going to spend some time with the image of the butterfly and reminding myself that I'm not powerless. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my piece of transparent paper, and again, this is just a slice of deli paper, and I am going to bring my gel pens into play here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some contour drawings of butterflies. Now, I'm going to show you what a contour drawing is in case you're intimidated or you think that you can't draw a butterfly. It's actually a really, really simple process. Let me bring this in. Actually, how about if I drop my camera a little lower? There we go. And now you can see. So I have my iPad here, and I am on a website or in an app called Unsplash. And this app has all sorts of copyright-free imagery. It's important that I use copyright-free imagery when I'm going to resell or redistribute or benefit in any financial way from what I'm creating. So even though these journaling lessons are free, and typically a journaler is working in their own book and they're not necessarily going to benefit financially from someone else's imagery, I still think it's important to mention that as an instructor. So I'm going to work with some of these images here, and all I did was open up the app, and then there is a search field up here, and I typed in butterfly. And so now I have all these photos of butterflies, and they're from different angles. They're different types of butterflies. What I want to do is I want to create a drawing that has a variety of butterfly shapes in it, that also shows butterflies in movement, as well as just the variety of shapes. I find them really interesting. So let's start with this butterfly right here. So, we're used to seeing butterfly imagery where it's completely symmetrical. And that's fine, that's wonderful. But I also find butterfly imagery to be very exciting when the wings are not open completely flat and we're able to see the dimensionality of the butterfly. So I'm going to work with this image, and just by tapping it, that brings me a larger view of the butterfly so that you can see it. And I'm not going to be too concerned about where I place it on my paper. But what I am going to do is I'm going to do a contour drawing. Now, a contour drawing is just finding the edges of a particular shape. So think about it as though you were a little ant, your eyeball was a little ant, and it's going to travel around the perimeter of a particular shape. And as it does that, if that little ant's feet were in paint or ink, it would leave a little line that showed us the contour of the shape. So really all I'm doing is I'm looking for edges that are important, okay? I'm going to work with my gel pen, and I'm going to start right here, and I'm just going to draw the edges as I see them. Now I'm going to come right back up the inner edge of this wing, and I'm going to connect it up by the head. And there's a little nubbin here, and there's a thicker body, and then there's the back of the butterfly, and I see that there's also a little antenna. Now I'm going to draw the other wing, and I'm going to find that point where it connects with the body, which is about right here. And I'm going to go up, and I'm going to draw it. And I didn't do it quite right, so I kind of had to fudge that ending, but it's a pretty interesting drawing here, and I can go back and I can correct and redraw some of these edges if I wish, but I don't want to get too particular about it, because the purpose of this contour drawing isn't to end up with a perfect replication of the butterfly, but for it to look or read like a butterfly when we take the reference photo away. Do you see how that works? So no one's ever going to come up to your contour drawing and say, your drawing is wrong because it isn't exactly like your reference. Actually, people are going to look at your drawing and say, wow, look at how beautiful that is. Now I want to put some of the detailing in here about the blue, the lighter blue that shows up. I find that really interesting, and because I find that interesting, I'm going to make the judgment call or take the artistic license and say that it's important to me. And I'll put a couple of spots up here just to make interest. Okay? So now I've done a contour drawing of a butterfly. Now I'm going to go and I'm going to choose another butterfly. Let's do this butterfly. But before I draw her, I'm going to take my deli sheet and I'm going to turn it upside down. And I'm also going to choose a different pen. Let's see, this one is... And now I'm going to draw her, and I'm going to do a contour drawing again. So this time I'm going to start with her little head and her little belly. And there's a really pretty shadow that's happening here. Now I'm going to go up to that rear one. I'm going to do this up here. And there's a gray tip, right, and a little spot. Now I can come back here. These leaves, or these wings sort of overlap. So there's a little edge or a line designation here, and I've included that in my drawing. And here's another spot and her little tip. And then I'm going to put her body here, and I'm going to add her antenna. Now what I'm going to do to this one is I'm going to put my reference photo aside, and I'm going to look at this drawing, and I'm going to say, what would make her more interesting? Well, I think if, for one, the lines of the wing closest to us, if they were a little bit darker and thicker, that would give her just a little bit of interest. It would make her a little bit different than the other butterfly that I just drew, where the lines or the edge work was all the same. So I'm just gonna sort of darken those edges just a little bit. And you know what else I'm gonna do? I'm gonna add some little dangly toes, just because I can. Okay? So I'm going to continue next. I will rotate my sheet again. And I will bring back my photo references. And I will continue to draw butterflies and overlap them. Oh, this is interesting. There's some really cool butterfly shapes here. Even though this photo is not completely in focus, so it's not going to let me. There's some really cool shapes that don't even necessarily feel like butterflies, like this one right here, which is just sort of a little shape. And look at how these two kind of feed together. So let's put that over here. There's this one. So this feels like it's two butterflies flying towards us together in the distance. So I'm going to continue to fill my page with butterflies, and I'm going to pay attention to the heaviness of lines, and I'm also going to continue to rotate. And I will be back once my page is full. All right, so I am back, and you can see I have my piece of deli paper here with my butterflies drawn on it. And I just want to point out a couple of things to consider or keep in mind as you're drawing your butterflies. So in real life, butterflies are not perfectly spaced away from each other. There's a lot of overlap, and the way they move through the air, they're not always synchronized. So for me, it's really important that my drawing reflect this sort of idea of chaos within the concept or construct of a recognizable shape. So lots of my butterflies overlap. You will see them touching each other. You will see them also flying towards the viewer from the underside, from above. This butterfly is actually sitting on something, but I didn't draw the surface of what she was sitting on. So, really take advantage of the creativity involved in drawing them from a variety of angles or a variety of reference photos, but then also spinning your page or your paper as you draw them. You're going to get a really wonderful dynamic design when you combine all of your different butterfly shapes this way, okay? So you want to have your piece of your butterfly drawings, and then you're going to bring your journal back into play. You want to make sure if you got your page wet that it's dry at this point, because the gel pen will run if you put it on a wet page. And now what you want to do is you want to play with a little bit of overlap. So maybe your deli paper fits exactly on your page or your entire spread if you're working that way. Maybe you can overlap it a little bit with the seam of the book. You might want to bring in a pair of scissors and cut it down to an interesting shape. But what I particularly love here, and I hope it's showing in the camera somewhat, is the way that the little bit of color here on the original page that we did our meditation on, how it bleeds or it shows through when we lay the butterflies over top. I find that really beautiful to look at. I really appreciate that. So, take your sheet or your drawings and spend some time, positioning it in different ways and seeing if there is a certain orientation or shape or way that you find, really gives you joy to look at. And you're going to choose an orientation, and I think I like this orientation the best. And I also, I want it to be somewhat on this page. And then also over here on the meditation page. So I'm gonna attach my drawing in this manner. So I think it's important that you understand that just because you're attaching something inside a book or over top of a page that you've already put marks on, it doesn't have to fit cleanly on that page. One of the best rules in art journaling is that there are no rules, and this is your book, and you can do exactly what feels good or right for you. So this is what feels right for me. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to adhere my, I'm going to put my page down, and I'm going to use some of this washi tape to do that. Now, washi tape is just masking tape that has a pattern printed on it. And like I said at the beginning of the video, if you don't have this, you can make your own washi tape by just drawing or painting on masking tape. So I'm just going to pull a piece out here. You know what? I didn't get any scissors for this. Hold on, let me grab some scissors. I think I want a clean edge on my washi tape since it's got such a strong design. So I'm going to use a pair of scissors here. And I have my drawing placed exactly where I want it on the page. And I'm just going to take this strip of washi tape. I'm having some motor control, gross motor skill issues. Okay, so I have my piece of washi tape, and I'm just gonna eyeball it and attach this page down. Now I can see right away that I didn't eyeball it quite enough. So I'm gonna cut another little snippet, and I'm not gonna worry about matching the pattern up. Actually, I'm gonna make it a little bit longer than I need to, just to play off of that interesting element that's gonna happen when the pattern, there's a break in the pattern. If I line it up perfectly, and the pattern lined up. Well, you know what? Let's do it this way. So I'm gonna line it up with the edge of the page, and I'm gonna align it perfectly here. And it's kind of cool that there's a little bit of a break in the pattern. It's not as obvious as I thought it might be, but that's okay. And I have this other washi tape, and I'm thinking that I might layer them. Yeah, I really like that. So I'm going to layer this one inside a little bit. And I'll bring my scissors in and trim it. Now there you have it. Now this way of adhering something in a book is called a hinge. And it's a hinge because I can still move this page and lift this page up. It's hinged. If you wanted to adhere it so that it couldn't be lifted, then you just put tape on more than one side and that will secure it down. And think about the design aspect too when you go to lay it down. Maybe you want the same tape over here. Maybe you want a different one. Or maybe you want to glue it down in an L shape or across the top. It's really up to you. Again, you get to make the rules. So go ahead and hinge your page in, and then if you hinged it or it goes over the, it extends across the binding, what you want to do is you want to gently use your thumbprint or thumbnail to add a crease to that deli paper so that it sits properly on the page, and when you go to close the book it doesn't crumple up. Now you will have to be cautious when you close the book, and I can see that my crease isn't quite in the right place. You may get a little bit of crumpling that happens, but you know, I'm not always super worried about that. For me, the journaling, the aspect of working in an art journal is more about the process and not so much about the end result. Although it is always pleasant to end up with an end result that is pleasing to look at. So there you have it. This is your butterfly effect page. what I find so meaningful about this is that we started out focusing on our breath, which in a way is a form of wind. And as we worked on our awareness of that, we brought it to the idea of the butterfly effect and small changes manifesting big differences. So a small breath, a small singular inhale can manifest a large difference in our world. And here we are with a colony or a community of people who are breathing and manifesting change as best as they can in their own little ways, but together, cumulatively, we're going to make a difference in the world. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today in this journaling practice, and I look forward to bringing you another SOJOURNaling lesson. Have a great day. Be well and be creative, and don't forget to breathe. Yes, I am back. So I was sitting with this page after I tied up filming, and I felt like it needed a bit more hope to it. And for me, hope represents color, or color represents hope. So I pulled out a tray of watercolors, and using the original layer of lettering or writing on the page, I pulled out my watercolors and I just randomly started to fill in the spaces between the words and the lines with color. I didn't have any particular method or approach other than I just reached for a color that sounded good, and I laid it down in a space. And I did that sort of in the center and then let it go out, sort of as a way of indicating the ripple effect in a sense. And then I really, the idea of adding the mantra, I am not the body, I am not even the breath, to the page in a stronger format, so that it's really a little bit more obvious. So in the interest of doing that, I grabbed my gel pen and I hand lettered the mantra in underneath the watercolor, but also in a position where it will get partially covered over or faded out by the drawing, but also be full strength or extend beyond this particular edge. And so then the last thing that I want to do is I want to date the page. I really enjoy dating my pages because it gives me a way of going back in time and knowing when it was that I made this particular piece. And I'm just going to use my stamp today, and I'm going to put a date right there. Another thing that I want to point out is that a page is never really done. I may choose to go back here and add other things to this down the road. I don't have any specific ideas right now, but I don't know where I'm going to be, in a week or a month or even a year. So I reserve the right to come back and add more context, more marks to this page at any point in the future. And so do you. And therefore, if I were to change this page again, I may add another date here to represent that second layer of marks. So now you have it, the butterfly effect journaling page. I look forth to hearing how you turn this project into your own. Feel free to share images of what you have created on social media, and go ahead and tag it with Art SOJOURNaling, hashtag Art SOJOURNaling, and I'll be able to see what it is you've been doing. Thank you so much for sitting with me for this journaling session, and I wish you all well.